everyone, and welcome to Haydn Behind the Music Stand. I'm your host, Patty Ryan, and with me is Natalie Raney, who is a cellist in the San Francisco Bay Area. She is a member of One Found Sound, a conductorless orchestra in San Francisco, and will be collaborating with Helia Music Collective among other various projects. And we'll be talking about illustration and graphic arts. Welcome, Natalie. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It's so nice to see you again. It's been so long.
It's so nice to see you. It's so crazy. We were just texting with a lot of our friends and realizing that we're all in like 3 different time zones.
I know.
We're so spread out.
I know.
Crazy how it's life. Life happens. Life has happened.
Oh, that's so profound, Natalie. Yeah, I mean, we were such a really close-knit family. So we met in San Francisco. Natalie and I were in the same studio together. Jean-Michel Fontenot, shout out. He's awesome. He was our private instructor at SFCM. And it was kind of like you, me, and Sarah Stone were sort of like the first year trifecta of...
Absolutely. It was my favorite part of coming there. I felt like this is such a great school. Like being with you guys, especially in that studio, and like that first year was like a dream. Like I remember back to those times and I was like, that was so much fun.
You and Sarah had this Seattle connection. So I always kind of felt like I was tagging along.
Yeah, me and Sarah, the first time we met each other, we realized that we had studied with the same teacher in Seattle and we were like little kids then. And it's kind of crazy.
That you like reconnected.
The cello world is so small.
It really is. Yeah, so we even started a cello quartet together called the Quarter Tones Cello Quartet, although it has obviously now been disbanded because, as we were saying, everyone is in a whole other time zone now. But we did a lot of busking. So busking in San Francisco, we would go to the Muni station, so like the underground subways and BART stations, and we would sit there, and I arranged a lot of cello quartets, so a lot of pop tunes, and also we had a collection of classical music cello quartets, and we just sit there and we had jam together, and people would be so appreciative. We'd draw a crowd.
Oh, absolutely. I have this very vivid memory of Father's Day and the music that we were playing for the age group of the dads. I think there were like 40-something dads. I remember there was like a very specific demographic around us.
Oh, really?
Bank that day.
Yeah.
And there was like Pink Floyd. We had like Rush. There was Kashmir.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. I remember it was definitely worth the trek out.
It was a lot. There was a lot of chairs. With 4 cellos, there was a lot. I remember that.
But at the end of the day, it was always like, most of the time people would pay us in $1 bills.
Yeah.
And so we would just go around and like throw the money in the air and have it sprinkle on us.
I think I still have pictures of that too.
Yeah, or like we just like shuffle them out. And
yeah, I feel like I really like lived on a lot of that busking money.
I did too. Absolutely. Thank you, San Franciscans who enjoyed the Quarter Tones back in its heyday.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Patty, for writing all that music.
Oh, it was my pleasure. So one of my all-time favorite memories of you is either was Juan, our friend Juan, or Peter, who are also, we are all in our same studio together. But I was practicing in Jean-Michel's studio, and I think Juan came in to hang out or start talking to me, and then you came in at some point, and we were all just talking and talking. The door was closed at this point, too, so it was just within an enclosed space. And suddenly we heard the little dink, the unlocking of the door, and the door slowly cracks open, and we see Jean-Michel's head sticking out, looking at, because he knew that we were in there. And then right behind him, sort of in little diced heads, were the Tokyo String Quartet. Because at that point, Jean-Michel was rehearsing with the Tokyo String Quartet, the Schubert Cello Quintet, and I think they were looking for a room to rehearse in. And so basically when Jean-Michel opened the door, and we all recognized that this was the Tokyo String Quartet behind him, Natalie exclaimed, "It's the Tokyo!" Like as if they were these superheroes. Which they are. But
that's so funny. Even, just getting ready to do this podcast, that was actually one of the memories that came up. I don't know. Maybe I remember it differently. I feel like it was me and you, for some reason, playing piano. I don't know. I have this visual of us. Why were we both playing piano?
I don't know.
Ew. No, I'm just kidding.
No!
Then I remember, Clive, the cellist of the Tokyo, came in, and I was like, I had like a starstruck moment, and I couldn't help myself.
Well, it's like, because we were just probably having fun. We weren't really actually practicing or anything like that.
I don't remember actually practicing.
So it's like we're just kind of having fun, and then suddenly it's like your musical heroes are just they just suddenly appear, and it's kind of out of the blue, and we're not expecting it. So anyway,
when you're in the middle of goofing around, that's the last thing that you expect. It's a bunch of them to come in.
That's one I'll share with the public of my favorite memories.
There's so many. I was like trying to kind of like a huge file cabinet of like memories with you, but what I remembered was this thing that we used to say to each other, and I have no recollection of like where it came from, but we used to do this thing, me and you I don't know if you remember this, like we would tell each other like, your hair's so pretty, or
oh my god, oh that's right,
smile. So it was all of these texts or like Facebook comments of like, your hair is so pretty, or your hair is so pretty.
That's
Where
right.
did that come from? I know that came from somewhere.
I don't remember the first seed of it, but I do remember the reason why we did that. I'll speak for myself. Back in those days, I was very, very self-deprecating. I was very worried about how I came across. I really was kind of my own worst enemy when it came to my own self-confidence, which is kind of contradictory when you think of yourself being a musician and you're putting yourself out there on the stage. Mm-hmm. I can say I've definitely recovered a lot from that. I think I've moved past that phase of my life, although, of course, we always have to confront it. It is a real conflict that I think a lot of musicians have to, at some point, work toward making a more positive outcome rather than constantly making yourself feel really bad about yourself.
Yeah, that was what I was assuming where that was kind of all coming from, because I do have a lot of, memory, and I think that's why I liked that studio especially so much. Being in that studio, in Jean-Michel's studio, that especially that first year, it was great to feel a support system within the LS community, because it was a struggle. It was something that I was dealing with, and I think also moving to a new place and going through different kinds of stresses with that and adjusting to those things, and
in the best possible way too. San Francisco Conservatory threw a lot of new ideas, new ways of thinking at you, but it's just a lot to intake. Absolutely. And the benefit of that school is exactly what you're saying. There's such this community feeling that you can try things out. We are here to be your sort of safety net.
It was so great to also just like, everyone was such a different player and to be inspired in like all those different ways. So it was great to have that kind of community. And I think San Francisco Conservatory and just being in that ecosystem, it like cracked open like a world. It got so into like the musical aspect of things. I felt like some parts of me, it's like, maybe, I could be musical, but it pushed me like to I felt like going there, I was like, oh, like there's so much to crack open with every piece, or there's so much more to like push yourself into. And like, it's exhausting, but it's like so amazing. And I think that's the biggest thing that I remember. And like, I feel like I'm still processing it all. And I think that's,
life,
really special. And that's life. And that is life, because it's hard. We were so immersed in it, and it was so great. But
here's the other thing about San Francisco Conservatory that I think is pretty unique in comparison to some of the other schooling I've had. Mm-hmm. There was this sense that our voices were heard by the faculty, that our input or our perspective on the music was objectively the same as maybe a faculty member's. However, the faculty members might have been just a little bit ahead of us in terms of expertise and could
pushing us into a direction.
Rather than sort of this dialogue of, I am teacher, you are student, you must do what I say. It was this idea that we are coming to the table with our own levels of experience, with our own levels of perspective, and let's work it out together. Let's have a conversation. That's what is, for me, my favorite part about that school.
Absolutely. And I know that you've mentioned before just the chamber class, but I feel like that is something to kind of bring up yet again, because that was a super new experience. Just that format of that class, we were all on stage, we were all in a circle. So even in that circle, it was kind of encouraging kind of that discussion.
Right.
All the teachers were there, but it was asked upon us to also comment and also exchange ideas. And I think it was overwhelming at first.
Oh my God. I think I got the shakes multiple times performing in that class. Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember the first time performing in that class, and I was like, wow, just knowing that the surround sound of your peers and then your teachers. And, it was a great environment to kind of share all of these ideas and get so many ideas that were not just the faculty, but also these amazing colleagues. I guess it was scary enough to kind of create like a certain kind of drive to achieve, I guess, more in it. And I just felt like so immersed in chamber music. And that was kind of exactly what I had been looking for.
Right. So going back to why we kept complimenting ourselves publicly.
Absolutely. Yeah. There were definitely some self-deprecating moments.
So what we would do for each other, and I think you more so to me because it started that way, was...
Oh, no way. I feel like I remember it the other way.
Oh, really? That's funny. But, we would overdo it. We'd be like, oh my God, you're so smart. You're so pretty. Oh my God, you're looking so great today.
Your teeth are so white.
We would overdo it so that we would be like, okay, let's like get out of this rut. Let's, let's not take ourselves too seriously here.
So true.
Yeah.
That's so true. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you are smart and you are pretty and your hair looks so good.
Same to you. I also have like a lot of visuals of your apartment was such a special place. I think I still, when I pass by your old apartment, I still have to look.
Yeah.
I know. I've spent so much time there. I just remember a lot of times sleeping. Like I remember there was one time everyone was watching a movie in your room and I was just sleeping. Sleeping.
Was this when we had our couch?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I stayed over a few times, I think, because I lived kind of farther away. And
right. We were kind of the midpoint to school and your apartment, right?
Well, I lived, I think at that time, I was living in what was called Ingleside Heights, which is on the M line.
Oh, man. Oh, that's right. You were the M line person.
Yeah, it was far. It was a little far away. But I ended up moving, to 19th Avenue, like in Pacheco. So
right. Much better. Much better.
A lot better.
Anyway, are you ready for some Spitfire questions?
Sure.
Okay. Mozart or Beethoven?
Beethoven.
Shostakovich or Prokofiev?
Shostakovich.
Netflix or video games?
Netflix.
Basil or cilantro?
Oh gosh. Can I say both?
No. I mean, okay, probably both is a fine answer, but because it's a Spitfire.
Cilantro, because I use that on more things.
Okay. Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Harry Potter, unfortunately, with
I know
going on, but
maybe I should change this question.
I definitely read more of those books, but I only got to 4, but I loved them.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
But I didn't really read any Lord of the Rings, so I'd be a poser if I said that.
But the movies.
The movies are good. Yeah, they're fun, but I
maybe
think still Harry Potter.
I wonder if I should change it in the future to Star Wars or Lord of the Rings because of the problematic...
Star Wars. For sure.
Okay. Symphony or chamber music?
Chamber music.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I figured. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay. Favorite practice room?
Okay, so, well, if we're talking about the conservatory, which is so nerdy, there was like a point where I was only practicing in 601 for a little while, if anyone knows.
That's Mark Sokol's room.
Mark Sokol's room, yeah, and I think there was a lot of attachment to that, and that's a whole thing.
Yeah. We love you, Mark, even though Mark's not here with us anymore, but yeah, he was such a force at SFCM.
Oh my gosh, one of the most important teachers I've had, absolutely. Yeah. But 601 or my living room? Okay, my bedroom? I don't like the bedroom as much.
Why, Natalie? Why? Please tell me.
It's always good to separate, When I practice in the bedroom, I'm like, wow, I really have not left this room.
Fair enough. Okay. Favorite professor shout out.
So we have Jean-Michel, Mark Sokol.
Yeah.
Jean-Michel, like the SFCM duo. Mark Sokol, I think, was pretty much my main chamber coach. And
oh, really? Wait, you never worked with Ian?
I did work with Ian, too. I love Ian, too, of course.
That's Ian Swenson, by the way.
But I think the first memories were, Mark Sokol.
Yeah, Mark. Well, because Mark basically coached everyone. Like, he did double duty. And then would even coach people on the side. Like, he was just one of those, Anyone else you'd want to mention?
My cello dad, Kurt Baldwin, who's my undergraduate teacher. And I've emailed him many times with like, I'm going to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. Tell me why I'm doing this. And then I always, of course, here I am still.
He's like, you're so pretty. You're so smart. You're so talented.
But in the cello version. Absolutely. I guess Sarah and I's old teacher, Mara Finkelstein, she was a huge part of my life and my inspiration, I think, for that fire. That's where the fire started, I think. It's hard. There's so many.
I know.
Ian too. Ian, there's like a lot of like cracking open pieces and like really diving deep. I think.
Oh man.
A lot of Ian Swenson too. And just for me, my memory with him was not just the piece necessarily, but pushing me musically so much. Like any moments where I felt like I was musical, it was like, no, you can do
more. Yeah.
More. And and there was always like more to give. There still is always more to give. And sometimes when I'm approaching pieces, I have his voice in my head.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
Yeah. And Jean-Michel and Mark.
Of course.
And all the other various
Yes,
teachers.
absolutely.
Okay. Most inspired musical hero of any genre?
Oh gosh. I mean, I was obsessed with Jacqueline Dupre when I was younger.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think any girl around maybe our generation,
Totally.
she was like our superstar.
Yeah, absolutely. She was just like a power and a force. And
her sound is so gorgeous.
I know. And she's so musical. But I love Yo-Yo Ma. Like, I'll always be a Yo-Yo Ma fan. I think what I love about him too is just that he does everything. He's not
limited to just the classical music genre. It's like he is such a pioneer. I totally am in agreement. I mean, he's also he's the sweetest, but like he's also is constantly trying to break down the barriers with his platform.
He has like a huge following, and cello is his medium to just, I don't know, he brings so many people together with it, just when his collaborations and his types of music that he's playing. And
yeah, it's like, how come we can't be like that?
I know. I'm like, and he just, and the whole time,
how does he do that?
Smile on his face.
I know. Yeah.
What he's doing is so hard. But just going back to like teachers and stuff, I feel like Jean-Michel was like good at this idea of not going internal. Like, he could tell those moments when, for me personally, it was like when I would almost shut off and I would not give up, but you're kind of like not in it anymore. And he was able to like see that. And I think with Yo-Yo Ma, he's just able to kind of keep that energy. And in those moments that are scary, like, it's so easy to go internal. And that was, just go back to that with Jean-Michel, he was so good at like keeping the presence, keep me engaged and keep me present. And by my last recital there, I had such a negative experience sometimes with solo recitals. Just the idea of them was so scary. And I remember by the last time after working with him, I was finally looking forward to it. So I think that was very special. And also his wife too.
Dana. We have to mention Dana Fontenot.
I worked with Dana, and she's a big part of that. So I was talking to her specifically before that concert, and together they're a dynamic duo for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Just so, since we tapped into Dana Fontenot, I feel that I must discuss what she does. Dana has an entire story of her own that is really interesting. She basically was a professional musician, and then, long story shorter, transitioned into becoming a therapist, and now basically has her own company, The Wholehearted Musician, where she basically is the therapist for musicians, and she discusses
like a life coach that has so much obvious knowledge, and she's a cellist. She has so much knowledge about this life as a musician and what it takes, and so how to get there, and this
career guidance as well.
Absolutely.
Sort of making sure that you are doing the first steps to becoming successful. And of course, during this time, it's such a important thing. So, and if anyone on this podcast is interested in her services, you can go visit her at danafontenot.com. That is spelled DANAFONTENEAU.com. Fontenot is French. So
yes. I'm
as is John Michel's.
I know that. Just working on Debussy Sonata, I was like, I don't want to say this word.
Anyway, okay, let's move forward. Most transformative performance experience?
Oh, wow. Gosh. I mean, there was a lot of some chamber performances at the conservatory, I guess. Working with Malika Favre, that was an interesting experience, but I think that was a big moment. So I did the Schumann piano quartet. I had a very intense masterclass days before that. And
was that the one? That one? God, that masterclass. That was tough to watch. Not because of your playing. It was not because of your playing. But man, that was one of those.
I remember he opened up with a personal insult to each of us. But in the rehearsal for the piano, we had been rehearsing for the Schumann piano quartet that morning, and he grabbed my hand and said, like, whatever I say tonight, don't take it too personally.
Oh, man.
And he knew I was playing the Mendelssohn C minor piano trio. I think I was just doing the first movement for the master class. He said something on the lines of, this piece means a lot to me. And so I think he was gearing up for it, but I think there's probably a lot of things.
He maybe went a little overboard. He maybe went a little too harsh on you guys and too strict, but it just didn't help. And this is where we love Ian, but Ian definitely added to the fire. So in a masterclass setting, for those who may not know what a masterclass is, basically there's the quote-unquote master. So let's say Menachem Pressler. He is the master of the pedagogy in the room. And you have have maybe 4 either chamber groups or solo musicians come up and perform. And then that master will then teach publicly to this person about these pieces. And maybe each person gets about 30 minutes, so it's about a 2-hour long masterclass or something along those lines. So it's not really supposed to be a dialogue between the audience and the master, unless that's what the master of the masterclass allows. So when I say then Ian just chimes in, Ian was in the lofts or something of the recital hall.
Way far, yeah.
Ian stepped up to kind of defend you guys, but then that just...
It made it worse.
It made it worse.
I remember, because Professor was standing right next to me, and his eyes got like really, the rings around his eyes just got super red. Or maybe I was just aware of, I don't know, he just seemed like he was boiling a little bit.
Oh, man.
Like, oh, no!
Like, stop it, Ian! Stop it, Ian!
I can take it, it'll be fine.
I should say, I mean, that makes it sound like Menachem Pressler is not a good, like, he's one of the legends of piano chamber musician. He was the pianist of the Beaux Arts Trio, which is the quintessential piano trio. Recordings are everywhere of them, and they were fantastic. It just happened to be one of those master classes that was, everyone suddenly was like maybe a little bit drowsy because we're all tired, and then suddenly everyone was like on the edge of their seat of like, what's going to happen in the showdown? Yeah.
I feel like privileged to be part of such an infamous master class. The master class. That was me. That was infamous, and that was mine.
And you happen to be in the limelight, right?
I was in the middle of that one. But, it was, in a way, like, I got through it. In that moment, I was like, okay, I can do this. And then the performance, it was different. He knew when to, like, be warm, I guess. And before we went on, I felt like we were a chamber group in that moment. Of course, he was still, like, Pressler. He was still like a hero, and I'm like still a student. But yeah, I felt like in that moment, we were to chamber group together, and we were going to make music together. And yeah, it was a really special experience. I remember days before the performance, he told us we were going to do an encore piece, and it was going to be the Brahms C minor piano.
Of course.
Slow movement, which I knew right away when he said that. Oh gosh, it opens up with a cello solo, and not just the cello solo, one that starts on like a G sharp. So treacherous. And it was like, okay, I guess I'm going to like shift gears and like practice for that. And there was a moment in there where I realized how amazing he was. Just the way he steered in certain directions. I just felt, oh, okay, this is Pressler. I understand. And it was like I learned a lot. In that 1 week, it was an intense week, but I definitely learned a lot, and it was very memorable. So
yeah. Next piece you'd like to learn?
Oh my gosh. I actually have a little list going, and what I feared a lot is doing solo cello things. So I've actually started leaning in and doing that. And that's
because who else are you going to collaborate with, right?
I know. And I think it's funny because I was already kind of steering in that direction before this pandemic started. And
okay. So it was
so
separate.
many ways I'm thankful, that those kind of projects are starting already, and I were kind of in place because I was able to still rehearse, quote unquote, with myself through all of this. So yeah. I've really gotten into like newer music, newly composed music, and playing music from all different backgrounds. I think is like an interest in something that I like felt being in school. Sometimes it was like, oh wait, do we have to play all the same pieces just like with a different interpretation? And something about that was like, I don't want to just play. Like I love Beethoven quartets, or I love keep saying Beethoven. I was going to say Beethoven cello sonatas. I don't know. I'm obsessed with, I love Beethoven.
I mean, it is Beethoven's 250th birth year.
True. But it was like, oh man, I don't want to just be playing this music that I'm hearing like all the time. Like I want to play new things, and doing a lot of these pieces, especially like some of these solo pieces, has like really pushed me in a like different way. And I feel like,
which ones?
Well, a piece that I'm obsessed with by Kaya Sariaho, who I feel like I'm just obsessed with now. I just played what feels like a lot, but the piece that I'm working on is called Pray. It's for cello and live electronics, and it was a mountain to climb, I feel like, for myself, and just the scariness of being a solo cellist, but also the scariness of having like live electronics and not understanding what I was doing. And I am grateful David, my boyfriend, has helped a lot in like setting things up, but even little things like programming my foot switch to work with this program and to to like trigger what it needs to trigger. And,
oh my! When you invite in electronics to classical music, well, I guess if you invite technology to anything, it's inviting some sort of potential small disaster. But when it does work, it's so cool.
It's the coolest. I'm obsessed with this piece. I love this piece so much. Each performance, I feel like it's not been good enough. I feel like, okay, I don't know, but I feel like, maybe it's just like this always discovering something new with it. And I feel like it's brought out a new side of myself and a new type of playing. But the way she writes for cello is just so great. It's weird that she's such a good writer for cello, but it's still so hard sometimes. And I just did her set Papillons, the 7 butterflies. I really love her work a lot. And yeah, I think this piece too has been really fun to work on. So yeah.
Awesome. You made it, Natalie. You did it. Whee! All right. So tell me about your musical upbringing. Who were maybe some of your first mentors that got you started on cello, or your first inspirations?
So the first inspiration for starting the cello was my neighbor in Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio. I think she was in upper middle school, like lower high school age. She played the cello, and I know that we went to a lot of her concerts, and she like babysat us a lot, and she was super cool. I just thought she was the coolest. And for me, it was like affiliating like cello is cool because she's cool and she plays the cello. Right. And I think at the time I was already playing the piano, but I was looking into maybe being in orchestra in school or being possibly in band. And my mom had a flute when I knew she was like in possession of one. So I was like, in my laziness at a time, I was like, oh, I'll just play the flute. She already has one. But then I decided, no, I'm going to do the cello, which I love the flute, and the flute's all great, but I'm like so excited that I
know, but the thing is, like, now whenever someone goes up to you and says, don't you wish you played the flute? You're like, I could have.
So true. It's so true. Every time I fly, I'm like, oh, that's a mistake. Yeah, it's a mistake. It's
no,
the whole thing. It's not a mistake. It's worth it, but it does stink. It does stink. Like I have this spiel that you have to go through with flying and like the certain kind of nerve-wracking energy that is flying with the cello is just kind of
my anxiety level and just like attack mode for me.
It's true. I feel like I
elevated.
Am like, it's like a mother and her cub. And, like,
totally.
The cello is my cub, and I am like ready to defend it at all costs. I very much feel that. I try to like stay calm, but I like as cellists, like we have our spiel down. So in a way, like I feel like when I know what to ask for, like the seatbelt extension, it shows like, okay, well, you know what you're doing and stuff. But yeah, having a flute and like throwing it in your backpack, what a dream.
Or even having a flute backpack, like you've
having a flute backpack, right? Like yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I derailed you again, but
yeah, my first experience with the cello was when I was in first or second grade. I don't think I even realized it until afterwards, but there was a talent show and there was a girl who was also in like first or second grade showing off her talent. Her talent was playing the cello, and I had this internal dialogue. I literally remember where I was sitting. It was like in this specific corner of the gymnasium and these bleachers, and I remember thinking, that is so stupid to play the cello. It's what a dumb instrument. It's so big, kind of going back into it's so big and annoying to like carry around. But again, it's worth it. It was worth it. So joke's on me, but I feel very lucky at the same time. But I can't, it's not like some almost romantic story. The beginning of my story with the cello is what a dumb instrument. But it sounded great. I'm sure it sounded great. I'm sure she sounded great, but... Yeah, so I started when I was in Cincinnati, and then I moved like about a year later. And I think the whole thing was that they had orchestra in school, and I was going to started this discussion about like, oh, maybe you want to play an instrument, maybe a string instrument. And that's kind of where that all came in. That band and orchestra were starting in 5th grade. But this was about a year before it, and I decided I couldn't wait to start. So I ended up starting and then, accelerating pretty quickly. And then I moved to Seattle, and then I studied with Mara Finkelstein, who is also our good friend's old teacher from Seattle.
Sarah's.
And I realized that I probably met her then. I feel like I have
people like that too.
I
think they're friends of mine now, and I think we just miss each other, or like just overlapped for like 6 months or something in the same studio. It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird, especially when you're that young and you just like
I don't know who this pipsqueak is over there.
Yeah, who is this? Yeah, because she was. I think Sarah's like maybe 2 years, maybe a year and a half younger, which in those days was like a huge
difference. Yeah.
Huge. So later on, finding out that, yes, she studied with her too. So I was in Seattle for about 3 years and studied with Mara Finkelstein. And then I moved for high school to Northern Illinois called the Quad Cities. And I studied with this cello teacher, Dr. Ehrlich, who taught at Augustana College. And I studied with her while I was in high school. And it was there that I had a master class with Kurt Baldwin. He's a part of the Ariana String Quartet in St. Louis. And I decided he's great. I want to study with him. And, it's somewhat, nearby. So it was great because, I was at University of Missouri St. Louis where I did my undergrad, and I kind of sought out studying with him specifically. And it was great to study with a string quartet. And that's, where the chamber music bug, honestly, where it came from. Being surrounded by it and having like these great coachings, these great chamber classes, and just, having a teacher that so valued chamber music. And one of my most memorable concerts that I went to was him and the Ariana performing the 132, the slow movement. And I feel so unoriginal saying it, but it was just such a special, I remember being in the audience and I was the only one sitting in this, there was not a lot of people around me. So I felt like it was just me and the music, and there was something really special about it.
That's an intimate performance.
It's so
that's
intimate.
That's what it's supposed to do. I shouldn't say supposed to. That's the joy that caliber and that level of music. I mean, I'm speaking to not only the quartet, but Beethoven himself. So when you say 132, I just should clarify that is Beethoven's string quartet, Opus 132, which is
Opus 132.
Right in the middle of his late period of writing, which is his most profound. And that movement specifically was when he was ill and was recovering, was thanking God that he was recovering from this illness. And of course, I love that movement too. And it's not cliche. So there's a reason why it's so good.
There's something that's true. I feel like maybe it seems cliche in this very niche world that we're living in. But and going back to just reference, I just reference Beethoven quartets by their number. And it's funny because my boyfriend, I'll say 132, 95, and he makes fun of me. He's like, no one knows what you're talking about. You have to say at least Opus, right, and then who is this by? But whenever you just say,
no, it's the lingo.
An Opus number. Yeah.
That's the chamber music lingo is knowing certain, even with Haydn string quartets thing,
right,
one that is. And
even with Haydn, I'm there's so many, so it's hard to keep track of all of them. But
of
Beethoven,
course,
I'm such a Beethoven quartet nerd. Yeah, I think that was that performance and just studying with them and those first experiences in chamber music with them. It was there that I was like, okay, maybe that's what I would want to do with my life, and seeing him do it, and
right,
it was really inspiring.
That role model to say that this is possible.
Yeah, I mean, he was a teacher, but he was a chamber musician first, and I think he was an absolute role model, and he was, what I think of as my cello dad. He's the one I go to when I'm feeling blue or feeling down about cello and feeling I don't know if I can do this. This life is hard, because it is hard. I remember a lot during my master's degree emailing him I don't know if I can do this. And then him giving me a pep talk. And so I feel he's the one I look to in those times. So.
Forgive Sushi. She just wants to play. But she was meowing in the background for a little bit. Anyway.
I love it. I feel cat meowing is the soundtrack of me. If I were to walk out on stage, it would just be to cat meows.
You were studying with Kurt Baldwin.
And then actually his previous teacher in his upbringing was the Ariana studied with the Vermeer Quartet, and the Vermeer Quartet, the cellist was Mark Johnson. And so he had a very close relationship with Mark, and Mark came to see some of his performances and also getting to play for Mark. I, decided I want to study with Mark Johnson. So I went off to study at Boston University, getting my master's with him. And again, cementing down, I was again studying with another cellist, chamber musician, that just furthered that desire to be a chamber musician and go into chamber music. And the New York Quartet was there too, and it was a very chamber music heavy kind of educational upbringing again. And he was a very special cellist. I mean, I think as a teacher it's more about him playing at me, that he was just so amazing at playing. He was just the nicest man, and he was just he looked like Santa Claus. Claus, I guess. He was just like literally so jolly. He had like suspenders, and he even had like Diet Coke and going with the like Coke commercials.
Right.
He always had a Diet Coke. Anyways, studied with Mark. And then from there, I was like, okay, yeah, when I discovered that there was this chamber music program where you could come as an individual chamber musician, I realized like I want to study at the conservatory in San Francisco. And I had heard a lot about Jean-Michel Fontenue. And so that came to be and how I ended up in San Francisco.
And you were part of the chamber music program there. And then that's where we met. And then what happened?
That's all that matters. I met Patty. That place was like very special in my heart. I feel like just going back to being at the conservatory, some of the most special things about it were the colleagues and like, yeah, again, learning from colleagues, being inspired by colleagues, hanging out with everyone. It was a really nice environment. There was a different energy, I think, coming to the conservatory. And yeah, and I feel like exploring what is chamber music and what does it mean to me, and even coming out of it, you know, still doing chamber projects, but like still discovering. It kind of inspired this seeking constantly, discovering constantly, like trying new things and experimentation. Yeah, it was the mindset of the conservatory and the mindset of living here. It really kind of opened my eyes to so many things that maybe I wouldn't have normally like seen or normally maybe tried and been too scared to try.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love all the places I was educated at, all the institutions, but there's something just so different about San Francisco Conservatory that it's hard to even put in words other than just this sort of a laboratory.
A laboratory. That's a perfect way to put it. It was a laboratory. And I think I'm still, of course, processing everything. And I'm still like have certain people's voices in my head.
Oh, yeah.
That, you know, like were always pushing me, and it depends on the situation. But yeah, I think what was so great is it was a place that our voices could be nourished, I guess. Our individual voices were nourished rather than teacher kind of stating how things should be. It felt like the laboratory. It felt like our versions of all of these pieces, our versions of playing the cello, playing the violin, playing the viola were valued and grown. So yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about your current projects. Can you tell me more? I kind of saw the beginnings of One Found Sound, and then I left San Francisco. I think I went to maybe their inaugural concert and maybe one other one or something. Personally, I should say it's so great to see that they're still active and they're still present in the community in San Francisco. Can you tell me more about your involvement with them?
Yeah, I've been involved with One Found Sound for years, and it's a lot of fun. For me, I don't do a lot of orchestra stuff, and I think for me, this is the perfect kind of group for orchestra. And I love chamber music so much, and I think it just is the perfect hybrid, I guess, of me missing out. I feel like I miss certain repertoire. Like there's so much amazing repertoire. When you don't play any orchestra or symphonies, you're just missing out on so much. And I feel like with One Found Sound, it's so exciting to have an opportunity to play that music, but also to have a say in how it's played and how an interpretation comes out, and just learning from peers and like being a living, breathing organism with this group and just having this dialogue, I guess, with the music. And that's the great part about chamber music. And I think that's what makes working on this orchestra repertoire so exciting, like, and then to play it together. And I feel like there's so many moments that's like, it is rehearsed, but it feels like it could be like even more organic because there is no conductor. There's no one person doing it. It being conductorless, anything can happen. Like we have to react just like in chamber music. And I think that's what makes the performances so fun and so exciting. And
so this is a conductorless full orchestra, not string orchestra. This is, you get the winds, brass, percussion, you get the whole kitchen.
Yeah, you get the whole kitchen. There's less of every instrument, I think. Well, it depends on, obviously, on the piece, but generally like
you're not necessarily doing Mahler symphonies maybe?
No.
Because, I mean, that would be an incredibly huge challenge to do a Mahler symphony without a conductor, right? I mean...
Oh, but I feel like there's a lot of pieces we've done that have been incredibly challenging without conductor, but it's happened. We pulled it off before. But yeah, I think a Mahler symphony would be, it's very intricate and it would be very intense.
Sure.
And just the music itself, just like dive into like that long of music and be
right.
that long altogether. There would be some heavy discussion, I think. It's nice. It's like my connection to the Bay Area music community too, especially having been doing a lot of solo things. It's always good to pop your head out and like be a part of something bigger, because there's other people here and it's so great to play with them. And yeah, so doing that. And then I had been getting ready for this project with Helia Music Collective, and they're supporting women artists throughout the Bay Area. And so they have helped commission 4 new works for solo cello. And the idea was that we were going to be performing these things in May, and
and then
reality. Yeah. So we had moved them to like August and September back in April, thinking like, oh, things are going to be so much better.
Yep.
So now the new reality is that we're doing live stream concerts, and in some ways kind of embracing live stream and realizing that there's more people that you can reach that way. You know, like having my parents be able to, I just did a live stream last month and they were able to hear me play. And normally, you know, they live far away. That's not possible. So it's kind of nice in that way. And like, why not do that anyways? You know, why haven't I been live streaming these concerts anyways? So, and I've done a few other chamber things. I worked with New Moon Duo, which is Anne Rainwater and Melinda Becker. Yeah, and we did some stuff with voice and piano. She's a mezzo soprano. It's been really fun to try lots of different projects. And I think creating like a certain kind of balance with that, I realize that's what I'm like happiest in, is having like a balance of maybe solo, a balance of chamber, a balance of group things. I don't know.
You're not like pigeonholed into one category. Totally. The true chamber musician.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's, and the project that I'm doing are new pieces by Elizabeth A. Baker, Belinda Reynolds, Julie Barwick, and Emma Logan. And so I'm having 4 world premieres, and doing new music is challenging, but then also like it's been so fun to be able to work like closely, get direct feedback from them. And I think that's like such a fun experience. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, Natalie, do you feel like having a break?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, we'll be right back. Welcome back from the break. So before the break, we were admiring Sushi and in all her glory and all her licking power.
She's magical.
She is magical.
Cats are magical.
I should mention, Natalie, one of the maybe defining features about you as a person is your love of cats.
Yeah, I was thinking about a hobby. I was like, can cats be a hobby? Especially when you don't have one. Is that a hobby? It's become like, I feel like students, I had one student actually that would count how many cat things were in my apartment.
Oh my God.
That included stickers or pictures. Or
that seems invasive.
Like, it was a little invasive, but it was coming from a good place, I guess. And the number was pretty high. That was just the living room. My cello case, it's like I have a collection of cat stickers now. It was collecting stickers, but now the theme is cats and I'm going with it. So,
well, you will get a new sticker soon with another cat on it.
Oh, yay. Perfect. I can't wait. Sushi really is the cutest cat I've ever seen.
Oh, I mean, I know it's genuine, but thank you.
It's so cute.
Anyway, enough about talking about my amazing cat. You were discussing with me about your interest in illustration and graphic arts or design.
Yeah. Graphic art, I feel like I don't honestly like know much about this world. It's hard to say because I feel like cello, like you're so immersed in like one specific medium and like a creative world. And like, then if I start talking about illustrate, this is kind of like the portion where I'm almost most nervous about talking about. Like, I have an interest in it. I've always had an interest in it, but I don't know a lot about it. I don't know what that means, but I just feel like if I think of myself as an illustrator, like I don't think I'm good at it.
But so you have illustrated some things.
I guess I have. I like dabbling in it, I guess. And it's been an interest of mine for a long time, even before cello. I was taking art classes and I was doing some drawing classes before I was taking cello lessons. I remember having this dialogue where I, like, when I was young, you know, when you latch on and you want to say like, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be be like
Yeah.
when you're a kid. For me, it was, you know, I want to be like an illustrator, and then I wanted also to be a writer, which my writing is horrible, and I don't want to do that anymore. But my idea was I wanted to put those together somehow. And yeah, being an illustrator was something that was always an interest of mine. And I think it's just my interest is being creative. And throughout the years, I used to have this file folder on my computer where I would save images that I like really loved. And I would like look through them like every so often. And now we have like things like Pinterest, and I have a board on there called graphics. And I think there's over 1,000 images.
Oh.
I just love illustration. I really love, and my like taste, I guess, with it has changed. And I like the idea of illustrating myself, but I also just love looking at works of art, I guess. And a lot of people like buy shoes or buy like these kind of things, but I need to stop it, but I keep buying art prints.
Oh.
Illustrators, and I like Instagram. I'm one of those people with 300 followers, and I'm following 800 people or something. Maybe not 800, 750, and like half of them are illustrators. I'm like I'm so cool.
Wait. Oh, wait. Okay. So what is it about the illustration art form versus cartoons versus...
For me, I was never like a comics person. That was not so. It's just, well, I wouldn't mind comics, but I like more the art of it. Like, I don't want to like, I don't want to read anything. So, I think it's just so many different styles, and being able to kind of see people like through their art. And for me, illustration or like graphic arts has been this other version of myself that maybe I could have been or something. I think if, you know, when you get asked this question of like, what else would you have done if you didn't go into music? Cello hadn't been such a huge part of my life and such a big commitment. I think I probably would have gone down that
I'm
path.
sorry. I was just confused. She got one of her little fishies. She's okay. I just thought for a second she maybe got something that was not what she was supposed to get. So
you're such a mom.
I'm
worried about her. She's like,
yeah,
Mom,
she's this is playtime right now for Sushi.
Cool, Mom. She had a bath, now it's playtime.
Yeah, so forgive me, audiences, if you hear any little cat meows or, I don't know, debauchery happening in my living room.
She's like almost getting like, does she ever get the zoomies?
Oh my God. So when she gets the zoomies, it's like she tears up the apartment. I mean, not really. Okay. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but she'll like suddenly go like, meow, and then just like run everywhere.
I love cat zoomies.
But hers are kind of extreme, and then the duration is quite short. Most of the day she's sleeping. So it's like...
That's a cat.
Like, yeah, but I think some other cats are maybe more active, or they fill their balloon of tension and then suddenly they have to just let it out every so often.
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from. I always wondered where that came from.
Yeah, but for her it's like specific and short amount of time, and then she's back to going to sleep.
That's a cat. That's all I remember from like having cats growing up.
Yeah. So anyway, going back to illustration, I had like kind of a half joking question, but were you like a huge fan of Lisa Frank back in the day? Like in the 90s? You were.
I actually wasn't, which it's funny. My memory of Lisa Frank is actually then going back to SFCM. Sarah and I used to share this locker, and I just remember having a packet of Lisa Frank stickers and like sticking it on my Dr. Beat, which...
A Dr. Beat is a metronome.
It's a super nerdy metronome that I was obsessed with, and it just broke, and I'm like,
no,
I know. I'm like,
oh my God, you need to bury it.
I know. It's like, I remember flying with it once, and they were like, what's this?
In that.
It's my nerd box. I love this.
It can count to 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh my God, I have used that voice too many times, but it's always like yelling at me. Yeah, I had a little Lisa Frank leopard sticker right on the dial. No, I wasn't a big Lisa Frank fan growing up. I don't know. I guess I don't really have like a specific person growing up that I latched onto, but there's some illustrators that I like really like now, and like kind of exploring, like Olimpia Zagnoli is one that I really love. I have like a huge poster of hers. It's the New York Transit poster from years ago, and I really love her. Her work is really like colorful and it's simple, but it has a lot of character to it, a lot of personality to it. And I've listened to a lot of interviews, and she talks about how she's not quote unquote like skilled at drawing, and like, or like says things like, you know, she's just kind of like figuring it out as she goes. And there's something like just discovering her, I feel like I'm like, oh, like can like
relate with that.
Yeah, I can relate with that, because it's really hard, like especially like we've talked about like doing one, or like for me just doing cello, it's hard to be, and you know, like I still feel like I have so much to like improve on, but like with illustration, like I'm so bad at it. It's hard to like be like a beginner at something, like when you're not used to being a beginner anymore. I think for me, it's just illustration isn't just like really the act of illustrating, but just this looking at all of these works, but also just seeing another creative on another side and with another medium, like kind of in their experiences with their own art, and like having those kind of similarities and relating, but then also feeling so far away in some ways. Like what they do is so different than what I do, but in so many ways it's the same. And I think illustration was always the thing, or like graphic arts of the thing that if I wasn't doing cello, maybe I would have done that. And what would I have been like? Like, would I be different? Like, what would I as a person be like? Because cello, I'm so entangled in music and being a cellist. And
I mean, this is easily going to a philosophical spot of like tangential lives.
Yeah, it's like my identity is as a cellist, but I think illustration it starts untangling that for me. It's like it's always been, I have a few concerts coming up, and after that I have this interest in like trying different art classes that I've found that I'd like to finally try, and like just kind of try it a little bit more and really like commit to exploring this. And I think it is healthy to have something else, like a hobby. And I think that I'm realizing so much that for my well-being as a musician, like I need to like step away from this instrument and try other things and find a balance in life. And I think that is what, you know, illustration is. And it's always been an interest of mine. And I think it's like what could have been, you know, not in like a negative way, but just, you know, I think it's just another creative field. Outlet. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you walk me through sort of your process when you do decide, or you find that creative spark to illustrate? Can you walk me through that process mentally?
So the moments that I decide to...
like, do you wake up one morning and you're like, hey, you know what? The trees look amazing outside. I feel like inspired to illustrate.
It is like dependent almost on mood. I feel like when I'm feeling cozy and like happy, like I feel like those are the moments that I feel like I have the time to really let myself try this some more. And I think being a classical musician is like this want for like this idea of like perfection, and sometimes that can get in the way of even like when I want to sit down and like try to illustrate something. And I think when I'm feeling really good, or like just like really like cozy and content, those are like the moments where I really can let myself make quote unquote mistakes. And
so it's like your safe space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It kind of feels like it's just for me. Like I'm not putting anything on display really. It's just, you know, like music is it's an outward thing, like being on stage. And this for me is the moments that I can be by myself and like create for myself with no worries of like who will see it or what people, you know, will think of it. And
so you've never posted anything of yours anywhere?
Not like seriously. I think there's like a few like funny things I posted. There was like one, I was doing this for a while where I got an iPad for music purposes. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to download Procreate. And I was just totally doodling. And I was just making like kind of like random strokes on the paper, quote unquote, iPad. And then I realized this blob that I had looked like an alligator. And I was like, oh, I'm going to make an alligator GIF. And there, you know, it's just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just kind of going with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's in some way, that's also healthy too.
Right. When faced with a career that is so structured, highly structured, music that is already organized for you, I can see how it's like the clay molding or whatever, or the pen is speaking life to you as you're drawing it. So totally. I guess maybe my question on top of that is, what's the difference between illustration and doodling?
I don't know. Illustration just seems, in my mind, just more formal. Like when you say like you're doing illustration, or you say you're an illustrator, then you're like drawing real like things. And not like, it doesn't have to be, it could be still abstract, but I feel like doodling for me, like when I can't really say like I'm illustrating something, because I feel like what I'm doing is just
total improvisation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when you set yourself to illustrate, you have a form in mind.
Yeah. I mean, and I haven't really done a lot of that. I find that, I'll decide, okay, this is what I'm going to draw. And then I start doing it. And then I'm like, oh, never mind. I can't do this. Like, this is bad. Back to just kind of doodling. Or then I'll just also go back to just looking through other other artists' work and just like getting inspired and then kind of like going through that rabbit hole and then realizing I'm too tired to just like I just love looking at it. I'm just so inspired by it, but it just feels like, wow, I can't imagine how they're so creative. I think that is, yeah, like you were saying, like classical musicians, we are interpreting works that have already been written with illustration. It's like you're just creating something that doesn't exist, like in that moment, and you're just starting to make it exist. That is scary and exciting, and I think that is the enticing thing about it, but it's also the thing that it scares me.
I could see that's like a giant mountain to climb.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, you know, I had like...
But probably those illustrators had the same feelings again when they started, right?
I'm sure there's so many different backgrounds, and like some went to school, some like didn't as much, and like, you know, everyone, it's just, it doesn't matter as long as you're able to like create something that actually like feels like it means something or is like true to you. And
so Natalie, I'm trying to say that you should do more of it.
I know.
Take your own advice.
It is something that I would love to like spend more time doing. And I think the idea of making a habit out of it, because I realize I need it. I need that habit. I need to have that outlet.
You should do like a 30-day challenge for yourself. In the morning, like wake up, make your breakfast, get a cup of tea or coffee. You said coffee.
Yes.
And then designate 30 minutes. You're going to illustrate something. Just like, isn't this an exercise that all the composers do?
For sure.
It doesn't have to be a complete...
It's just about that. It's just like incorporating it in your day. So we're like in your week. So it's like a part of,
Okay, Natalie, I'm like, I feel like you're a mom now. I'm like, you're going to do this.
I know. I want to. I really want to. Yes. Talk to me like in a few months and I'll just be drawn away. That's my image of what a few months will be. But yeah, I think it's not just that, like I have this idea, and this is where the like unhealthiness kind of comes, where it's like, well, I have these projects coming up, or I have these concerts coming up, and I can't do anything else other than like think about the pieces or like practice the pieces, and that's like already like unhealthy, because you need that balance so that you can approach the pieces with a like happier spirit.
I'm totally, as much as I'm being like, you should do this, like
True.
But I mean, I totally, like, I don't want illustration to become a homework assignment or something like that.
No, I'm always happy to do it.
But I guess I'm saying, like, you have an audience that would love to see what you're, again, like what you're saying about Olimpia Zagnoli is that she was saying that she's kind of just figuring this out as she's going.
Yeah, but she's so great.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, you have this audience that is waiting to be with you on your path to awesome.
To creating more alligator doodles.
Yes! I want to see the alligator doodle.
Yeah, that's something that is always kind of in the back of my mind, and I think I had thought about like, oh, it'd be fun to be like a graphic designer, but the idea of kind of creating something for like the corporate world kind of seemed like, oh, that seems not like all of that kind of creative, what you want to like put your creative.
It would be stifling, probably, right?
It feels like it, but I think, you know, graphic designers are like amazing and great, but like, yeah, I think that was never like something that like seemed super exciting to me, but it was definitely something that I thought about, but I think that was the thing that kept me away from doing that.
Are there any other illustrators that we on the wayside forgot to mention that are inspirations for you?
Yeah, I have. So the first one really for me was Malika Favre. I don't know how to say her name perfectly because she's a French illustrator, and I've been obsessed with the two of them.
Can you spell it?
It's Malika, and then her last name is Favre.
Okay, where's Jean-Michel?
Yeah, where's Jean-Michel? I listened to her say her name so many times and I still can't like recreate it. Yeah, but I like love like everything by her, and I actually have like a Mozart art print. She did like a Lincoln Center thing like a few years ago, and it's like one of my favorite possessions is this print by her, and it's right next to the Olimpia Zagnoli poster, and it's like a happy corner. It's like my music corner actually. So yeah, the two of them, they are like my two like inspirations, I guess, in that world. Yeah, anything by them, I would like love everything. So I love this illustrator Ori Toor. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He's Israeli. He does a lot of like animated work, and you just have to see it. It's hard to describe kind of his illustrations, but all three of these illustrators so colorful. I love a lot of colorful kind of illustrations, but I discovered him way later, so it's kind of like only a few years ago.
I see. So it's kind of a new.
Yeah, I really love his work, and there's, oh my gosh, there's just so many. But I think the three of those kind of come to mind the most.
Well, that begs my question. How prolific are illustrators?
The ones, so the Olimpia Zagnoli and the Malika Favre, they're, if you've read the New Yorker, or if you've read like New York Times, they've both had so many covers. And I know one with Malika Favre, she has 4 female physicians kind of facing down, and it became like a viral thing where like female physicians or like female surgeons specifically started taking pictures together. Like,
like that. Copying.
Like, it was before all of the pandemic, I feel like. Yeah, they were copying that illustration, and it was just women-centric. Like, a lot of their illustrations are of women, the two of them. It was cool to see. I don't know what her illustration could do, like what kind of it inspired, and like how it became like a bigger thing. Seeing like what I guess art can do. It can, of course, but just seeing it in like the modern world and how it can lift up specifically women in that situation and show, like that women are doing lots of different things. They are, I think, two like big forces, I think, in illustration, or at least in my mind, at least. But they've done a lot of things, and I'm sure you might have seen their work and not even realized it.
Sure, I bet I have. Yeah. Is illustration all now done on Procreate, or what are the tools, in other words?
Some people will use Procreate. So there's all the Adobe Suite, like Illustrator and Adobe Sketch. And then there's like the Wacom, which is a pad. It's like a digital pad that you can use with a pen, and it connects with Bluetooth to like a computer or whatever you're using. And so it kind of feels a little bit more like you're drawing on paper. And I know a lot of people, like Olimpia Zagnoli, I think uses that on that. And then you can work within like Illustrator, or like whatever program you're working with. Or some people will start with pen and paper, not pen and paper or whatever they're using, and then put it in digitally. I don't really, for me, like the digital kind of art is what I guess I'm like interested in,
Okay, yeah.
For me, like I feel like putting like pencil to paper seems scarier because it seems like more permanent. And
interesting.
What I've loved about like even just like dabbling and like trying Procreate is that I could just delete it so easily. Like you can just erase it.
It never happened.
And you can pretend it never was there. This is like such a tangent, but I went to like DC, and I remember I got to see some like scores from like different composers, like Beethoven, and Schoenberg was one of them. And he like had a measure that he obviously didn't want anyone to see, and it was just a huge black square of like he just didn't want anyone to even have like a glimpse at whatever was on
it. Potentially was his mess up. His
mess up.
It's funny. I had this other thought. I actually haven't yet seen this for myself. I think there have been illustrations of my quartet while we've been performing. There's someone in the audience, but this happens in a lot of classical music concerts. And it's always kind of fun for when the illustrators are, they're hobbyists, I'm assuming, just people who also enjoy illustrating, but they will illustrate, maybe the intensity or whatever of a first violinist glancing over to the cellist or whatever. Right. Sometimes I think those become logos for some quartets and stuff like that, right?
Oh, interesting. Oh, like a little illustration.
Or just like a little, yeah. Is that something that maybe in the future you would consider doing with your little, very easily erasable digital?
I don't know. I guess I've never pictured myself doing that. I think for that reason, at the moments that I'm doing it is my time. Like I feel like I'm just by myself at home, or I'm just me and like having my own like little moment. So the idea of like being in an audience and maybe like someone glancing over my shoulder already like,
oh, I see. You're so self-conscious.
That's also then going back into the self-deprecating. Like
you are so talented, Natalie. You're so gorgeous. You're so
such pretty hair. But yeah, I think it's right now. It represents just having this space to just be.
Yeah, and that's totally okay. Yeah. We love that too.
But the idea of being able to I think what's impressed me so much with those people that do that in the audience is that they are like able to like create something, and then like in the amount of time that the concert lasts, and then like have something to show people. Like what I would be showing would be just like a big blob, like an alligator. Like, this is you.
What? It's hilarious. Any other last thoughts on illustration?
It's kind of like a hobby, but like AKA maybe just like an other version of like maybe a dream too. Like if I really think a lot about it, the dream is like, oh, it would be so fun to like actually like do something with that. Like I could still be a cellist, but you can still do something more with it. Dreaming. I'm just dreaming right now, which is fun.
Yeah, nothing wrong with dreaming. Okay, Natalie, can I ask you a couple other questions sort of about
course.
our condition in the classical music world now?
Of course.
Okay, what in your opinion is one of the most common misconceptions of classical musicians and the classical music world?
I think this misconception like of that the musician, like this uptightness, I think there is like some like culture of this, but I don't know, it's so complicated. I guess it's like classical music has it has been a lot of just like a lot of like white European men, like, and so I feel like it's spoken to like one
demographic
of people, and I think it is like a medium that should and I hope will start like including all walks of life, and I feel like we're starting to head in the right direction, and it's unfortunate kind of the events that had to take place to kind of really like crack open the problems.
Rest in power George Floyd, and also just the number of people that also are still not being held accountable for.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting, the idea of voices finally being heard. And I think part of this is classical music world is trying to convince everyone, like, if you just listen to Bach one more time, like, I know you'll love it. And I love Bach, of course, but like Bach doesn't speak to everyone. And
right, you don't have to force feed something. Right.
Exactly. The possibilities of classical music. And it's such a weird term. You try to, like, what is classical music? What is that? Why is it called classical? I think like it's hard to call it that anymore. But I think it can be so much more, and I'm excited to see what this medium like will bring to the world. But I think it has had its roots in tradition and in a lot of bad ways, and I'm like hoping a lot of these traditions get uprooted and a lot more voices are heard. And I think what's great about it is that there's a performer voice and there's a composer voice, and having this kind of medium that we're like both people like from different backgrounds can like represent different things and merging together. I think it's what makes this world so exciting, and the possibilities are like so endless. And that's something that I think coming out of school and realizing like the pieces that I had played are literally just white men from Europe, and being like, wait, there's got to be more to this. I had a student actually that asked me, do women write music? And my heart is crying.
Yeah.
Of course they do. But I can understand where that question is coming from.
Yeah. Oh, that horrifies me. Yeah.
Has really like driven me to.
Ooh, I would have had to be like, okay, let's get some tea. Let's talk about this. Put down your cello. We have a whole other. This is important too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just trying to play works by women and non-binary composers and artists, and that's kind of the path I'm interested in taking. And just it's exciting to be a part of something that I can like do something about. This is the medium I have, a platform, like this is what I want to do with that platform. And
I'm with you too. We will do it together. Okay, after all the impact that COVID has done to classical music, what do you think is something positive that will enhance and carry on in our profession?
Well, going on with live stream, just being able to reach out to so many different people through like virtual performance, or I've seen a lot of colleagues like trying new things, and like they're doing like such amazing things with that. It's like really, really inspiring to kind of see people. It was really scary and it was really intense in March. I remember having like kind of this weight on my chest, almost realizing the unknown and like not knowing like how everyone would deal with it, and like also seeing like colleagues and like other artists really freaking out about it, and it's really scary. And but then to see them change gears and like take a turn, and it becomes something that's like really amazing, and it's like really inspiring. And I think that has been like a really positive thing that I've seen come out of COVID-19 or this time during this pandemic. And I think for myself, just live streaming and almost embracing the ability to reach a bigger audience. And I don't know,
Can you imagine what it would be like if the pandemic happened in 1970?
No. I don't know what
before internet, before computers.
I was like I've been thinking about that.
What would we do?
Like, but I realized I would just have like 3 kids probably, like, getting ready to die anyways.
Okay, Okay, it's not that long ago, Natalie.
What year did you say? I don't know.
1970?
Oh, 1970. Those people were a little bit more woke, I guess. I think because I was stuck in envisioning like what it would have been like in like the 1800s and
or like when the Spanish flu.
And I had this life somehow where I was just teaching cello lessons, and but then I was like, wait, that wouldn't be my life.
To go back, it is so great. Technology is an incredible man-made tool that is helping connect everyone together. It's awesome.
I spend my day on it. Other than practicing, but like teaching and connecting. During this time, I feel like I've connected with so many friends, including Patty.
Yeah.
I think the connection has like also been like connection in concerts, but also connection in just like people. Yeah.
So Natalie, how can people reach your videos, your concerts? Do you have a website? And what about your other groups? Yeah. Just give me all the plugs.
Everything should be on my website, which is natalieraneycello.com.
Okay, and Raney as in Raney.
Exactly. Yeah. Natalie, Natalie, Raney, Raney. Cello spelled CH.
No, don't do that.
CELLO.
There you go. Thank you. Don't confuse my listeners. And if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, please subscribe and leave a hopefully positive review on Apple Podcasts. It helps this podcast reach more people, and it makes me feel like there's meaning in my life. That's a joke. You can also give feedback at our email, haydnmusicstand@gmail.com, if there's something you'd like to suggest or just say hi. Sharing with your friends and family is a free way to support this podcast. And if you'd like, you may also visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/haydnmusicstand. For all the hard effort I put into this podcast,
What?
I very much deeply appreciate my current Patreon subscribers, but the more the merrier, just saying. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Haydn Music Stand, to access more content. There's also a Spotify playlist available with all the pieces we've discussed on the show. You can find it in the description of each episode. Thanks, Natalie. It's so good to see you.
So nice to see you and hear you.
Oh, of course, yeah. And thank you for listening. Sushi, say bye. We should commission a composer to have like solo cello, but with kittens on stage.
That sounds, oh my gosh, I'm down. I'll throw money at that project.
You can premiere that.